What's going on, everybody? This is a special edition from the Self-Made Sports Network. We are here to talk about the big victory in Dublin for the Cyclones. I just want to say cheers real quick. I got my Guinness right here. Wish I could say top of the morning to you, but it's top of the afternoon to you. How you doing, bro?
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling good. That was a really fun game. Yeah, I guess just really well executed. I mean, obviously a little bit shaky in the first half. I think you can really attribute most of what was going on there to the rain. But they really, I guess I don't know if they really took control of the game, but they really took control of the ball and really locked things down there. And wow, that's a hell of a win, man.
Man, my heart's still pounding out of my chest. I for multiple reasons, but just seeing them being able to pull out a close game this early in the season, and they kind of really looked like they were in midseason form in the second half. So it's something you really love to see.
Yeah, it was really nice. So I guess if we I've got some notes here when it comes to the first half. Obviously, the first half was a little shakier in some sense. It was really high and low. Obviously, it started off kind of slow, and then obviously the big play was I believe it was Trey Bell came in and forced that fumble on the punt return. Well, technically it was just a muff punt, but his heat forced that fumble on the punt return from whatever the Donovan Edwards, I think that's what the running back's
Yep,
name is.
their running back who
Yeah,
ended up not playing
Dylan
the rest of the
Edwards.
game.
Yeah, Dylan Edwards. Yeah, he also got hurt on that play. So that was really kind of the most important play of the game. Obviously, from the perspective, really more from the perspective of the running back getting hurt. Because, if I recall, I don't think actually anything ever came of that possession. Because obviously, they got the ball within the 5-yard line, but then they decided to do that short
Get
pitch.
cutesy with it and run a pitch on the 1-yard line, which I still don't understand. But I mean, a dub is a dub, so I'm not going to question, what we thought could have been.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, that was really exciting. I guess before I kind of get into specifics, just more high level stuff. I was kind of surprised. I thought that Chris Kleiman was pretty careless on a couple of fourth downs there. I think that there were at least 3 turnover on downs. Fourth down. Yeah, Kansas State was 1 for 4.
And one of those came at their own 30 late in the game, and that was kind of what.
I think 1 for 4. I think is what that is. Yeah.
They were 2 for 5. They were 2 for 5 on fourth down.
Okay.
But obviously that big one, the big one was going for it on your own 30 at that. I think it was 4th and 2, 4th and 1, maybe a long 4th and 1, if that. And Johnson just couldn't quite get there. And obviously they score after that. Kansas State clearly responded with that 65-yard bomb, but the boys held true and went for it on their own fourth down there. They actually went 3 for 3 today on fourth. So that's kind of a big difference maker in the point. I kind of really wonder what happens if they don't get that 4th and 3 there late in the game. That ended up sealing it there on the almost touchdown by Hansen. Which
I really like that decision.
Yeah, especially with that all-out blitz. I think that was probably the perfect play call.
Yeah, because something that I was harping on Twitter, and I don't think it's a new thought for me. I think I'd learned this from some other commentator. I think I saw it last year. But obviously, kind of conventional football wisdom would be to go ahead and kick the field goal to bring the deficit from 3 to 6. Obviously, it means that Kansas State can't do anything with a field goal. But in my humble opinion, what I think that would have done, what it does, is that it really it turns the offense more aggressive. The offense becomes more do or die. They have to go for a touchdown, and I think that's actually detrimental to what Iowa State is trying to do. So I like the idea of risking giving Kansas State the ball just being up 3, because I think that if Iowa State's just up 3 after they turn over on downs, it kind of lulls Kansas State to sleep a little bit. It puts them in a mindset of a little bit more conservative of a mindset where they don't need to score a touchdown. They can kind of fall back on that field goal, and that might affect their play calling. But obviously, it didn't matter, and there was a really genius play call by Mauser to kind of slip out Carson Hansen there.
Great play
And
call.
first, I thought he scored, and then I guess what ended up being one of the biggest plays of the game was the decision to overturn that call, because at that point it was your ball game.
Yep, that also overturning that call. I hate to say I like to see an Iowa State touchdown come off the board, but that did cover for the unders if you got it at 51.5.
Yes, if you listened to us yesterday, I said that at the time yesterday there was no rain scheduled in the forecast, but things are kind of
Yes.
volatile in Ireland, and if you uh, to go ahead and hit that under, because things can pop up pretty quickly off the water there in Dublin. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
it
got
got
it at
really
52 and a
dicey there
half, and
late.
I catch that. Yeah, it did. I didn't think I was going to have much trouble there. But I guess getting back to the fourth downs, I was looking at the play by play here. The one that surprised me the most was Kansas State. It was, let's see, was this in the it was in the first half. I think it was early in the second quarter. Uh, Kansas State drove all the way down. Actually, it was after one of the fumbles, one of Rocco Beck's fumbles. Kansas State had the ball all the way onto Iowa State's 7-yard line. It was a 4th and 1, but they were on the 7-yard line. It was tied at 7 at the time. Kansas State could have kicked a field goal just to go ahead and go ahead and get a 3-point lead. But it kind of made an odd decision. I'm sure the mathematics said to go ahead and go for it there, but I guess I just thought it was a strange decision to go for it in the red zone and give up that field goal. And that was the one I thought was most peculiar, was Chris Kleiman's decision to opt to not take the lead in the game and pass up on 3 points, and that 3 points ended up being the difference in the game.
Was that before or after Conradi missed that 49-yarder?
It would have been before.
Yep, so that had no merit to that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would have liked to see him make it. I really would have liked to see a field goal go on the board. So I would have been spot on with my final score prediction. But nonetheless, you leave Dublin with a huge win. Now you have all the momentum in the world. You hope you can sustain it for the next 2 weeks, leading up to Iowa at home. I know Jack Trice is going to be jumping for that game, as long as you can take care of business next week. I shout out to Chris Williams. He said during his halftime show that he thought it would get a little more, there'd be more fireworks in the second half, and he was 100% right on that. Whether it be the running game getting going, Hansen was huge down the stretch there. The last couple drives, he kind of asserted his dominance, and I think that was a huge part to them being able to drive down the field. Obviously, Beck with the touchdown run, just overall, just a fantastic win for the team. Obviously, you didn't see much of the new transfers at the wideout position. There was a lot of drops in the first half. I know Jake Bren said that he was soaked at halftime from being down on the field. So the weather was obviously a factor. But just being able to come out in the second half and kind of punch him in the mouth, get a couple stops, and then put up some points and, continue to get stops throughout the game. I don't know, man. You just love to see it.
Yeah, no, that's something that we talked about yesterday was the wide receivers, and I guess we were kind of questioning whether or not that depth chart that they released would actually be correct, and it ended up being accurate. I think that the first three wide receivers that they trotted out there were Eskelson, Overby, and Eli Green, which I believe is what the depth chart said.
Yep.
I think Sowell got a few targets. I don't know if he ended up getting a catch. He did not. I don't. I feel like I saw Xavier Townsend a few times, but I don't think he ever got an actual target. And then I don't think Daniel Jackson played at all. I believe he was on the injury report. I forget. I I believe they released a final injury report right before the game that might have considered him out, so Jackson might not have played. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows you that the program experience prevails. It's kind of what Chris Williams had been telling us all along, is that it might take a little bit for guys like Townsend and Sowell to gel, and in the meantime, Eskelson and Overby are getting the job done.
Yeah. Dominic Orange was huge on the defense today, in some tough spots. He had some big tackles at the line of scrimmage. Bacon was huge. He was all over the field today. You love to have him back. Secondary, granted, you take away that 65-yard touchdown. The secondary was pretty good today. Well, I guess the 40-yard touchdown as well, but you can maybe attribute that to Johnson's pump fake leading into that wide open touchdown to Chase Brown, I believe. But just the grit of the team overall, I think was, you don't have a lot of stuff going your way. Obviously, in the first half, neither team really does. You come out right away, get a stop, get the ball right back. Kansas State goes down the field. You get a stop. You go down and score a touchdown. They come back, and it was almost kind of scripted to what we talked about last night. With it was going to be punch for punch between these two teams, and it did indeed come down to the final two possessions in the game. So
yeah, and those were two of the names that I had written down too. Were Don Morge and Caleb Bacon. It seemed like that defense was in midseason form, like you mentioned, except a couple of hiccups from the safeties. I really thought that, like you mentioned, I agree that the defensive line looked good. They were getting a lot of push. They only ended up getting one sack, but I thought they looked really good in the run defense, and the pursuit by the linebackers and really the whole team was great. That Haycock defense always does a good job of rallying to the ball, and I thought they did a good job. But what I feel was kind of the star of that defense, especially early on, was the play of Marcus Neal Jr. We talked about a
yes,
little bit about him
yes,
yesterday. Was him playing that star position and seeing if he could live up to the likes of Greg Eisworth and Bro Freeler, and he certainly did yesterday or today, and he had a couple of good tackles. I think on one of those fourth downs, he might have been the one to get in the backfield there. Another guy in the secondary that was a little bit unsung was Trey Bell, the transfer, I think, from Longwood. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, he was the one that kind of forced the pressure to that led to the muff punt. I'm not sure if he would have been the one that recovered it, and I feel like he made a couple of good tackles there on defense as well. I feel like that defense, I think I'd mentioned on Twitter, that defense is in a place where I feel like if you wanted to move Cooper back to safety, if those young safeties ever continue to struggle, and then just slot Trey Bell in at that other cornerback position opposite Jontez Williams, which is what the depth chart said. The depth chart didn't have Cooper at cornerback. I believe Cooper played cornerback all game. I think that's something that you could do, but kind of like you said, the Van Dinter and Cummings Coleman had a couple of hiccups there, which was disappointing. But I think there's still plenty of potential there in that defensive secondary.
well, you also got to remember that they're pretty young as well. This is kind of really their first time seeing action. The fact that you took down a top 20 team, and you're facing a high power offense. With a quarterback that somehow is on the Heisman watch list, I would imagine that his name is probably going to drop big time in the odds makers as far as that goes. He had I feel like there was a lot of balls today that just kind of hung in the air for an unreasonable amount of time from both Becht and Johnson. Overall, especially in the first half, it just seemed like the ball was in the air forever, and then it led to a bunch of drops. I know Iowa State had a lot of drops. In the first half. Obviously, it was very, very wet, very rainy. You could tell it definitely dried up in the second half, and that's when the scoring kind of exploded.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I had pointed out, the tight ends. The tight ends were so highly touted. In the first half, I didn't think the tight ends looked all that great. Obviously, Cooper Alexander had that really bad drop that ended up stalling a drive. It would have been nice to see
Yeah, that
them
was a
reel that
huge
in.
drop.
Yeah, but then in the second half, Burkle had a couple of good grabs, and then Bramer had a couple of good grabs. Obviously, Burkle had that. It was a play that they ran last year with Bramer. I think it was on a third down or a fourth down, where it's not like I said. It's something they do last year that Mauser likes to call, where they kind of do that thing where I think it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 1. Looks like Rocco's going to run a quarterback sneak, but then Rocco
Yep,
pulls it out. The
they
tight
run
end
that
fakes like
stun
he's going to
almost.
block it, and then he kind of lollipops it over. And in both instances, Bramer last year just managed to get his fingertips on it, and so did Burkle this year. So, yeah, I thought that Burkle played pretty well. He had more targets than Bramer did, although Bramer had more yardage. He had a couple of decently big plays. So, yeah, the tight ends didn't blow me away in the first half, but Bramer and Burkle certainly looked really good in the second half.
I don't think anybody blew anybody away in the first half. It was I kind of think you got lucky with that touchdown catch that they had. Obviously, they blew that opportunity on the goal line after that muff punt. I think they should have done a QB sneak, but you try to get creative with your play calls at that point, I guess. And I don't know if it was kind of like an overthinking or like an overplay from the coaching staff, but it obviously then ended up hurting them in the long run.
And obviously, one unit that didn't play as well as maybe we thought was the offensive line. I didn't think that they played that great. I know that Rocco went down a couple of times. I don't think that many of the sacks were the offensive line's fault. I know
No.
it's something that Williams was just talking about, and I agree with him. There was a couple of situations there where Rocco held the ball too long, and one of them, I think, Sama missed a couple of blocks there. But it was
Yep.
more in the running game. It didn't seem like there were some situations, especially earlier in the first half, where it didn't seem like the offensive line was getting the push that they needed. Obviously, next week it'll be interesting to see if Trevor Bohr comes back and to see what that offensive line looks like when it's fully healthy and who becomes the odd man out there between Barrett, Boniface, and Black. I believe are the three guys there, the three interior linemen there. Who, obviously, Bohr. Well, that's a lot of bees. A lot of Bohr will come back in there and take out either Boniface, Black, or Barrett. I'm
Say
not
that 5
sure.
times fast real quick.
Yeah, I know. It'll be interesting to. I'm gonna introduce two more bees into the mix. Ben Bruns, his Iowa Everywhere reaction tomorrow. Obviously, he's a big offensive lineman guy. I'll be curious to tune in to Ben Bruns's podcast with Aiden Wyatt on Iowa Everywhere to kind of see if he breaks down what might have went wrong with the offensive line, who might have been the weak link, and then obviously where Trevor Bohr might slot in next week.
I don't know if you've seen the on-screen graphic they showed late, but they outran Kansas State like something like 109-16 in the second half. And
Wow.
like I said, a lot of that was Carson Hansen getting going on those last couple drives, leading to that eventual game-winning touchdown that Becht was able to punch in. But I'd really have to look at the time of possession real quick. But Kansas State really kind of looked kind of gassed in the second half. I'm looking at it right now. Iowa State held the ball for almost 35 minutes. I'm going to be interested to see what that looks like for the second half. I think those last couple drives, they just kind of really looked like they didn't have much left in the tank. I'd be interested to see what the sub situation that Iowa State went with there late. I know they had to burn a timeout for a late sub that Kansas State matched.
Yeah.
But
So something that you kind of alluded to, and it was something that the broadcast brought up as well, and I thought it was a good point by the broadcast was kind of how they balanced out the running backs. It seemed like that there was a concerted effort there to keep Hansen fresh, where Hansen played a lot in the first quarter, then Sama kind of played quarters 2 and 3,
Yep.
and then you're able to bring a really fresh Carson Hansen back in the fourth quarter. And like you said, he gashed a couple of really good runs there. I guess one thing of note. I guess I wouldn't really say that it's surprising, but one thing of note is that none of the other running backs found their way into the game. I don't believe they certainly didn't take
They
any
did not.
handoff, but I don't believe Lee or Flora made it into the game on offense. Obviously, Flora was doing the bulk of the return duties, and yeah, I don't think that either of those two made it into the game in any context at all. So I guess I don't know if I wouldn't really say it's surprising. It's just something of note, just because those freshman running backs were getting some hype in the offseason.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Rocco Becht had 12 carries today. I don't know if that includes the sacks that he takes. I don't know if that goes down as a carry technically. I know
I believe it probably counts as kneel downs as well.
yeah, that's probably true. But yeah, Hansen finished with 16 carries for 71 yards. Sama finished with 14 carries for 43, and then obviously Becht with 12 for 18 and the touchdown late in the game that ended up sealing the deal. But it just seemed like they really had a tough time sledding downhill. I know Williams alluded to them kind of getting stuck in a box and not seeming to have too much movement on the front line there in the first half. Obviously, it opened up big time in the second half, especially late in the fourth. And I think you can kind of overlook all the first three quarters as long as when it gets down to crunch time and you really need someone to come through that they do happen to come through. So,
Yeah, it was just another situation of Rocco Becht really commanding the offense and having a clutch performance. Obviously, he didn't play all that great in the first half. Not his most accurate game, 14 to 28, 50% completion percentage. So obviously, you'd like to see that completion rating get up. But yeah, just another situation of Rocco Becht showing he has what it takes to lead that offense down the field and get the job done.
as he's
I
done.
guess yeah. The last point that I had written down is I'm curious what this does to Iowa State's rankings. I wonder, even though that Iowa State is at 22 right now, I wonder if the rankings are kind of volatile and fluid enough that a win like this could bump them all the way up into the top 10. I don't know if it will, uh, but I think it could be possible that you see Iowa State with 11, 12, or 13 next to the name coming into the South Dakota game next week. What do you think? What do you think? Where do you think that Iowa State might be ranked next week?
I don't know. I'd probably put him around 15. I think 15 would be respectable. Um,
Can you say you're cutting out? Can you say it again?
Sorry, we got bad connection here in the house. So we got a lot of people here right now. I think you could probably see him around 15. I think 15 is probably right around where they'll be. I don't think Kansas State drops out. I think they probably come in at 24, 25 maybe. I don't think they drop completely out just because it was such a hard fought game. But I mean, just the grit there at the end of the game that Iowa State showed, I think that, it gives you a lot of promise for the future and a lot of promise for tomorrow. Obviously, you got some things you got to clean up, but I think overall you couldn't be happier as a Cyclone fan coming out of this game.
Yeah, definitely. So I think just the big thing now is recovering. I don't think that there were any major injuries. Obviously, Brazina went down. We'll see what's going on there. But I think that the big thing at this point is just being able to bounce back, getting back into the central time zone, shaking that jet lag, and getting ready for what's going to feel like a quick turnaround for the team. Obviously, it's the same amount of time between games as there always is, but it's just kind of it's something else that the broadcast had mentioned and all the usual suspects had mentioned this in the offseason, how both Iowa State and Kansas actually opted to not take a bye week after their Ireland game, which is kind of an interesting decision there. So they must be confident enough if they have a game plan. I don't know when the team's coming back. I'm going to keep an eye on the flight situation there. I feel like the
I believe it's
logical
tonight. I
decision
believe
would
it's
be
tonight
to
or
just
tomorrow
get back.
morning.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if they're gonna go ahead and spend the night in Dublin. I feel like it would make sense to just get on that plane as soon as you can. It's about an 8-hour flight, which would put you back home roughly around midnight, allow you to get back to bed, and then maybe start fresh Sunday morning. But I don't know if they're gonna do that. I feel like somebody on the broadcast had kind of mentioned that they're going to leave tomorrow, or maybe it was Williams that said leave tomorrow. I don't know if they meant that like literally, or if they had any information, or if they were just using it for conversation's sake. So I'm a little curious as to when the teams decide to head back to the Central Time Zone.
I would imagine it's probably going to be sooner rather than later, especially since they only got there 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I know that Campbell was big on not acclimating to the time zone, getting there to play the game, and then coming right back. So I guess it really just kind of comes down to, do you go ahead and stay the night there because they're 8 hours ahead of us, so it's it's pushing. I guess they're 6 hours ahead of us, so they're pushing 9 o'clock right now. Like you said, they could hit the plane right away, be back by the morning. A lot of those guys will probably sleep overnight. It's not like they're taking a Frontier flight either, so I'm sure those seats are a lot more comfy than what you get on your regular commercial plane. But all in all, man, dude, I couldn't be happier with how the guys that we talked about last night, how they performed, how they played, how they showed up, and just once again, just the grit of a Matt Campbell team coming through late in the game. He's obviously found his niche and kind of his bread and butter for what he wants in a team, and they responded really well tonight. So just as always, just a great day to be a Cyclone.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great. I would have been satisfied with with what happened either way, just because I felt like they played well, and in that situation, I was just a little worried about them coming out just flat out getting embarrassed on the national stage, and so even if they had ended up losing, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But obviously, it's great to get that dub, and yeah, excited to get to Jack Trice next week, and I'm sure we'll have more coverage for you guys next Friday, breaking down the home opener.
Yep, it's gonna be jumping. Can't wait to pack the jack, as they say.
Yep, really excited. So that's all I had. Do you have anything else for us?
Yep, baby, I'm gonna go ahead and land the plane for us. Once again, Iowa State coming out on top in Dublin, the Dublin Dub, 24-21 against the 17th ranked Kansas State Wildcats. Like I just said, great day to be a Cyclone. I got to get off this stream here, and I got to go draft the football team. So we'll hit that next week, and we'll take a look at the lineup. I'm gonna roll in there like a champion that I am. So,
all right, sounds good. We'll see y'all next week.
All right, brother.
See you later.